Hello everyone, my name is Craig and welcome back to the channel, and this is a video review of, wait for it, this is a long title, the Dart Zone Covert Ops Storm Squad Quickshot Blaster. Woof, let's get into the review. So long names aside, let's get into an external overview of the blaster. Starting up front, there's no end strike barrel lug, and this is not an end strike blaster. To the back is the cylinder. This is an auto-advancing cylinder, but non-removable, fixed in place, capacity of 4 shots, right? So every time that you pull the trigger, it will auto-advance. The rotation cylinder, 4 shots, kind of low capacity, even for a cylinder shot blaster. But even for something this small, I think I've even seen blasters with higher capacity, with larger of that, but that's interesting. Hitting up top, nothing to manipulate. Getting up to here, this is the priming handle to pull back. You do that, it is spring powered, and you're ready to fire. Once this blaster does not have slam fire. Up top is a scope. This is non-removable and fixed in place. It has it's pretty much see-through, besides a little like crosshair thing at the end and here. It's not going to help you aim, but it does look cool. Not many blasters come with sick pistol scopes. The prime weight is a little bit harder than most Nerf Elite blasters, because this is a Dart Zone blaster. It's going to have a higher velocity to it, so that's to be expected. Also, in the back, when you prime the blaster, sticking out is the priming indicator. This means that it is primed. After you prime it, it will jump back in. Awesome and very obvious way to tell if your blaster is primed or not. I mean, you can probably hear that click and determine that it is primed or not. So I guess this is priming for dummies type of thing. But what else? Getting down to the grip. The grip I have mixed opinions on. The grip, again, is not proportional enough. They missed it by another inch or so. With this grip, I think that it's too small for the blaster, but whenever I hold it with 2 hands, it actually feels like a good amount. But whenever I hold it with 1 hand, like my pinky's still, like this part, it's like it's missing like maybe 1/8 of an inch, not a 1/2 inch this time, like 1/8 inch of the pistol grip. It both feels like the exact amount, but also pretty small. I think they could have added just a little bit more on the grip, and it would have been fine. So the grip is, Trigger pull is pretty standard. This blaster does not have slam fire, which is pretty surprising. I was hoping that even for 4 shots that it would have slam fire. This would seem like a good package to just whip out and go bam, 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 bam with, to go fast, but apparently not. So that is that. Trigger pull is pretty hard for most blasters on the line, but it is advancing the cylinder and firing a higher velocity projectile with that. Aside from that, there's no other things to manipulate or anything like that, so let's get into a firing demo. So firing at the 5-foot target, again, starting off with what I forgot to mention, the included Dart Zone waffle head style darts. Let's start with that. Now switching over to some Nerf Elite darts. I could not jam the darts in here. Now for some Adventure Force. What? Moving on to Quickshot full-length darts. Ooh. Now for some Quickshot 3/4 length darts. If I can find 4 of those. Three. Alright, for whatever reason, I can only find 3, so we're going to fire 3 of them. Nice, now some Dudo's 3/4 length darts. That was pitiful. White Omosting darts. Lastly, for comparison's sake, if you'll fire some Old Orange and Strike darts. Ooh, they actually fit in there. Firing analysis and conclusion of the blaster. It fired decently well. There was a lot of high points and there were some unimpressive points of that. I think that it fired consistently well, but maybe not with all of the projectiles with it. There was no jams or malfunctions with the blaster, so I'll get over each projectile and how they fired through the blaster. Starting out with the included Dart Zone waffle head style darts actually were pretty good and fairly accurate. I would recommend these. These are basically the same design, if not almost proportioned to the Quickshot full-length darts, which also did pretty well with these, but they were actually not the stars of the show here with these. But both of these are definitely good option. Check out Zuru Quickshot full-length darts or these Dart Zone dart waffle head darts that were given to it, right? Nerf Elite darts did actually very well. Got some very high velocity out of this. You'll probably get into the upper 70s, lower 80s with this blaster just by the eye test. I don't have a chronograph right now. It is broken, so I have to do it by eye test, and some decent velocity out of it. The Adventure Force darts were kind of pitiful as far as velocity went. Definitely a velocity decrease. I would not recommend using these darts with this blaster. The the Quickshot 3/4 length darts, I think, were the star of these. While they weren't that accurate, they definitely had the best velocity out of it. Um, Due to it being a smaller projectile, I mean, that doesn't really make sense with velocity. I mean, well, actually, it kind of does. Actually, smaller things tend to fly with more force. Uh, but these were actually definitely the star. I would still check out Zuru 3/4 length darts and the full length darts. These are definitely great things. If there's one thing that Quickshot does well, they make great dart projectiles. With that, the Imposting darts were pretty bad. They were just as bad as the Adventure Force darts. However, they're pretty accurate, which is why I use them for comparison's sake. With that one, the Dudos darts were extremely painful. Those were the worst out of all of them. Yes, they were beaten out by the old N-Strike darts. It had terrible velocity and just had a very short arc as well. Speaking of the darts that had really well, the old orange N-Strike darts, these orange ones actually fired very, very well, almost to the same standard as the Elite darts, which is a change in that. Only something like Dart Zone blasters could achieve that level of success, and that's really good. So if you have these darts with it, this could be a good option for you if you just happen to have a bunch of these old darts lying around. Make sure they're not crappy, but they will still work in here and fire at a decent velocity. A very decent velocity. I am impressed. This is one of the few times I'm actually going to praise this dart. So that is the dart projectile. So I would say overall the FPS of this is probably the very lowest. I would say is probably about 68. The highest is probably about 82 feet per second. And that's just by the eye test. So take that with a grain of salt, but definitely a very deep, heavy, very heavy and high velocity blaster. It's Dart Zone after all. This is not Dart Zone Adventure Force. This is like Dart Zone Covert Ops, which is a sub-series. This is supposed to be shooting at higher velocity. However, let's get into my opinion and a summary over this, because this is actually one of what I'm finding one of the more disappointing blasters of Dart Zone. If I'm thinking of this one. This one is more towards, like, almost what we would expect out of Adventure Force, not out of actual full-on Dart Zone out of that, but it's still definitely not bad by any means. Let's get into the negatives first, actually. The scope and stuff it's just a waste of plastic, and it's another big thing that I have to do to pull the priming handle, and the priming weight that just adds to the priming weight. I don't like this. You know, I complain about unnecessary plastic. Also, the grip is just missing about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 inch of space for full, like, proportional stuff. I totally think that if you just take a hacksaw to that, you could totally holster this blaster much better. Although you could make a little front holster instead of a whole holster for this, and this is still of a good profile. So that's another negative. The last negative is actually the capacity. I don't know why you only put 4 shots in here. 4 shots, and especially with this small of barrels, you probably could have fit in 6, or even you might have made this tiny bit bigger. You probably could have put in 8 in that small amount. With that, in a pistol form would have been incredible. With that, so that also the lack of slam fire and the lack of tactical rails. I know Dart Zone doesn't do a lot of that, but they still could have totally done it with it. So there's some negatives, but let's get into the positives. The positives include higher velocity, definitely decent velocity, good form factor too. This is like a genuine like sidearm. With that, I think that it needs a little bit better weight balance, but it feels kind of heavy, and again, probably due to this big old scope and stuff, they could have just chopped that off. 4 shots is all right. I mean, with it, it's definitely a very consistent blaster, and it has a Dart Zone name with it, but it's still kind of disappointing with that. But I think that performance kind of cancels out a few of the negatives. So my opinion on this blaster, I'm gonna say positive, but only slightly positive. Um, it's more towards the in between. Definitely not negative, but I expect a little bit more out of Dart Zone, but it's definitely not bad. This is definitely better than a bunch of other blasters that I've been reviewing, especially as in pistol form. Would I be using this in a Nerf war? Probably not. I'm probably gonna pull out the Dart Zone Pro Mark 2 or 3. Actually, probably 2, or is it 2.1? One of those two blasters. I would probably pull out that before I pull out something like this. This is probably going to be my first one, actually not my first, but one of my Goodwill donations with this. I just bought this just for the purpose of review, and unless if it blew itself out of the water, like if this had slam fire or something, I would probably be keeping this blaster, but I'm definitely getting rid of this blaster, but it's still pretty good. No real objective reason to avoid this blaster. There still could be better options, maybe, but that's up to you to decide. My recommendations, technically, I would say if you want Dart Zone quality, check out the Dart Zone Pro. All of that. I don't have a review on that blaster, but not yet. I do intend to review that, but check out that. Or if you're wanting something like Nerf-ish thing, check out a Strong Arm or Disruptor. It's definitely much bigger, but it definitely has 6-round slam fire enabled, and definitely a little bit, I would almost say a little bit more wieldy than this thing. It might have a slimmer profile, but it's still a little bit unwieldy with this if you don't want to take a hacksaw to the darn thing. So that's the video review of the Dart Zone. Whatchamacallit? I don't even know, because the Quickshot blaster, I believe. There we go. Let me know your thoughts of it in the comments down below. Be sure to like this video if you did. Dislike it if you didn't. That does tell me that. But I would appreciate the comments saying why you didn't like the video. But do leave a comment, say why you liked it. Or not. Be sure to subscribe. If we do reach 100 subscribers, I will start a Q&A. We'll give that a chance. I don't know if 100 subscribers is the best one to do for a Q&A, but I see a lot of returning commenters in my comment section, so might still be able to pull it off with that. So let me know what you think, and YouTube thinks that you might like this video on my channel, so go check out that review. My name is Craig. I'll see you guys in the next one.